Hey folks, welcome to the Lambo Portfolio Series Part 1. We'll call this the kickoff video. So let's get into the introduction. What the hell is this? So we're going to get into the what, we're going to get into the Jan 2025 report, and then we're going to talk about what's next, similar to my other video which I did on the dividend investment series. And just a reminder, this video is not financial advice, so do keep that in mind. So moving on, what is the Lamborghini Fund or the Lambo Portfolio? So as you could probably relate, it's one of my man-child goals. I've always kind of envisioned having a supercar since I was a kid.
Ever since I was a kid, I've been legit.
And again, I'm sure you could relate as well. So as I grew older and older, that, wish didn't exactly change. So my goal still is to acquire the supercar. Let's call it a supercar, not a Lamborghini. Let's call it a supercar I'd like to acquire in my 30s, right? So that could be low 30s, that could be mid 30s, that could be 39, but right before I turn 40, who knows? So that's going to be kind of the goal here. And well, when you talk about the cost of the vehicle, because I mean, they've gotten insane. Like 10, 20 years ago, a supercar wouldn't cost as much as it does now. It's probably close to double what it used to be. So let's just say I'm aiming to have about 100 to 150K purchase price for a vehicle. And again, it doesn't have to be new, it could be used. It doesn't have to be a Lamborghini, it could be like a McLaren, it could be whatever supercar by definition is or feels like to me. Could be a Porsche, heck, it could be a Lotus Emira. I don't know, we'll find out. But again, that's just the goal. In terms of the strategy, so my goal here is to self-fund this account from secondary income sources. So none of my primary income is going to be a part of this. So it's not like my 9 to 5 job or my primary business is going to be funding it. It's going to come from secondary sources, and I'll get into what those are in a little bit. But that's going to be the strategy. And up until now, these secondary income sources have been tied to my time, right? So the more time I put in, the more income I get out of it. And some of them are dependent on my time. So if I don't put any time into it, it doesn't result in any income. So what I'd like to do eventually, starting now, is to have the growth of this portfolio self-sustain. So even if I don't do anything, I don't generate any income, the fund is going to hopefully appreciate in value over time just by virtue of maybe investing or things like that. So, and again, I'll get into that in the next slide. So let's do that now. Getting into progression a little bit. So I've had a Lamborghini fund since I was probably like in my early 20s, and it probably had like $1,000, and it would just kind of grow over time. It would just be like a savings account, and then once the COVID era hit, then interest rates really kind of spiked, as you're all aware. So we had these high yield savings accounts yielding 3%, 4%, CDs yielding 5%, and even now the yield is pretty high. So given everything that's going on in the market with the new U.S. president and everything, I'm pretty bullish on the next few years. So I think it's safe to be a little more risky, and I'll get into that in a little bit. I know I'm just kind of jumping ahead here, but talking about progression. So I started really taking the progression of this fund seriously about a year ago. So January 2024 is when I really kind of started tracking all the different buckets and accounts and sources that I had and kind of monitoring the growth over time. So that's what you see here. So as you can see here, I started around 21,000 at the beginning of 2024, sorry. And by the end of December 2024, I was around 32,100, right? And you could kind of see the month over month progression. I actually have this is straight from my Instagram, so be sure to give me a follow on Instagram. But every single month, you'll see a progress post where you could see exactly how much I went up every single month. So be sure to check that out. Now getting into the source of income, right? So what's contributing to this growing over time? So again, none of it is coming from my primary source of income. So it's going to be secondary things like maybe bonuses or commissions. It could be the consulting business that I have. It could be digital product sales, YouTube ad revenue, interest from savings or CDs. So all of these currently do contribute to this fund, and not all of it. So in other words, if I have a consulting business and I generate, let's say, $2,000 a month, I might say 500 of that goes into the Lambo fund. The other, 1,500 might go into home improvement or travel or any kind of discretionary expense, things like that. So all of these are white. The investment here is red because I haven't really invested from that standpoint into this fund yet. Everything has been pretty much savings accounts, CDs, things like that, and income progression over time, not really taking any risk. And that's when that now is when that's going to change. So January 2025, I'm pretty bullish on the next 4 years. So I think it doesn't hurt to get risky because it's probably going to be, worthwhile. It would be rewarding. But again, don't follow my advice. It's not financial advice. It's just kind of my thought process, really just kind of documenting here. So really the gap here is investments. So that's what I want to get into. And that's what I started to do in 2025. Moving on. So January 2025 update. So what happened? So again, it doesn't really show you the big picture here, but I had, let's say $10,000 in this fund in a savings account, not a CD, not anywhere else, just in a savings account. And I decided to, take a little more risk, get into the investment side of things. And I transferred $10,000 over to Fidelity in a brand new portfolio dedicated to this Lambo fund. And as you can see here throughout January, I did contribute in total $10,000 if you add up all these numbers. So that's what I did. So I funded the $10,000. What did I do after that? I wanted to kind of keep it consistent and keep it so it doesn't, get me stressed in life. So all I'm going to do is just buy a single ETF. I might add another here or there, but we're not doing single stocks here. We're just kind of doing what's risky with the most potential. So I went with QQQM. Think of it as a tech ETF that I don't think you could really go wrong long term. Pretty decently diversified, but that's subjective because, some positions in that ETF have a much higher composition than others, but that's a separate conversation. But as you could see throughout January, I did make several different purchases at different prices. And the average cost basis came to about $213.66 for a total of 34 shares. So the goal here is, as I kind of build more and more of this fund, I would be more willing to invest more into QQQM and things like that so that it grows over time. So again, up until now, if I go back a few slides, this has gone straight up. So what I'm expecting now, it's not going to go straight up because this has been very conservative, zero risk. So you never see any kind of pullback. But now that I'm, pretty heavily, like $10,000 of this is easily 33, around 30%, 33%. So now that we're kind of risking it, I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see, some volatility in this fund going up or down. But yeah, that's the January 2025 updates in terms of trades. And how did we close out the month? So the end of January, I had $10,050.08 in this account, which I funded $10,000. So it only went up about $50. So not a huge win, but hey, I will take it. And then at the end of January, overall, this was the number we ended up with. So $32,802.01. And we went up about $700 from the prior month, and which, was a 2.2% gain. So I will take it, better than nothing. As you can see, it has been kind of tapering off because I've been spending more and more, or really less of my time contributing to the Lamborghini Fund and just kind of working on some other projects. But the goal of this series, and by trying to be risky, high risk, high reward, this should hopefully kind of self-sustain growth, even if I don't do anything related to this portfolio. So what's next? I'm going to continue making monthly videos around the different actions taken. So did I deposit money? Did I make any trades? What did the progress look like at the end of the month? Things like that. So more to come there. And then breakdown of growth contributors. So again, like you saw that I was up about $50 here in this $10,000 investment portfolio. That's part of this $32,000 fund. But I was up $700. So where did that other $640-ish come from? So you don't see that right now, but one of my goals moving forward is to maybe talk a little bit to the different sources of those funds. Like, hey, I made X amount of dollars through ad revenue, and this is how much I contributed, things like that. So that kind of gives you a better picture of what contributed to the growth or loss on a month by month basis. And yeah, so I will be, hopefully, if I have time, publishing monthly videos, but I think that frequency will really depend. If there's not a lot of activity, if I'm not like really crazy, going crazy buying stocks or anything, it might become a quarterly sort of video and not a monthly one, but we'll see as time progresses. Because I mean, I don't know, it's not very entertaining. It's good for me because on Instagram, at least, I'm definitely going to post every month just to kind of keep track of progress. But I don't know if it makes sense to make a YouTube video out of it. We will see. And again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And be sure to follow my socials, especially Instagram, where I'm going to be posting a lot more content and things like that. Check out some of the other stuff in the description. And I might even have a stock portfolio tracker, things like that. I know I have a dividend investment portfolio as well. Be sure to check that series out, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.